turn to one of your favorite social apps. It might be Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to. Just go ahead and turn to one of those social apps. And please, can I just say before we go on, do not respond to that email or that notification, just so that we're on the same page. But I want you to go ahead and turn to that social app and turn to your friends section, if you will, really quickly to your friends section. And what I want you to do is I want you to quickly peruse through your friends. Just all you have to do is flip your hand on your phone. Some of you are like, why am I friends with this person? There are two specific questions that I want to ask you as you're kind of looking through your friends. I'm wondering how many of you, as you're looking at your list, that you have people that are similar to you in your ethnic composition. For those of you who might not know what that means, let me put it in a different way. They have the same hair color as you, and they have the same skin color as you, and better yet, they have the same eye shape as you. The second question I want to ask you is, how many of those friends are really your friends? But seriously, as many of you know, I think all of us here, we would love to just draw circles around those people that we consider close friends. In fact, we like to demarcate very clearly those people who are in our circle and those people who are not. In fact, let me kind of illustrate it with you with these hula hoops. I am not going to move it in a triangular motion. You don't want me to do that. You know, if you think about it, it's so easy to have a circle around you, and what you're doing is constantly looking for people that you could put in the circle. Therefore, if that person is similar to you, or that person speaks the same language as you, or that person enjoys the same thing that you enjoy doing, you put them in the circle. And that's why it's easy to then say, this is my group. And from there, what you do is then you take the other hula hoop, and this is the circle that you draw around other people. These are the people who are different from you. These are the people that you don't really hang out with because they're very different. And you clearly demarcate that in your life. And I think we have to remember that sometimes some of our differences are not a bad thing. In fact, I'm a firm believer that our differences can make a difference in this world. As I was growing up, I always saw my ethnicity and my background as a curse rather than a blessing. Let me explain. I grew up as a Korean American in the United States. And through that whole experience, I struggled as I tried to find myself in a particular circle. So there are times when I would be here and I said, I'm an American. I speak English. Maybe not the British English that sounds smarter, but I speak English. Then I would go home and I look in the mirror, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes. And so then I enter into the Korean circle. And as I enter into the Korean circle, I realize I'm too willful and stubborn and too rebellious to be a nice Korean kid. So I don't belong here either. And I think something that we have to understand is all of us, we define ourselves by circles. For you to really understand a little bit of my journey and my story, I need to kind of give you a little bit of a background. My family and I, we immigrated from Seoul, Korea, South Korea, to the United States when I was 5 years old. And my father left earlier than us, and my mom, my older sister, and my younger brother and I, we followed along and we moved to the United States, and we moved to Chicago. Those of you who know where Chicago is, if you don't, you just don't know good pizza. So get to know Chicago. And so we came here together and we did everything together. In fact, my family was my world. My family was my circle. And we did a lot of things together. We went on vacations together. We went on different outings together. And so everything that I saw through the lens of my family. And through that experience, what happened was, as I grew up in Chicago, we went through the whole Chicago school system. And one thing great about Chicago is such a diverse city. I want to show you a picture of my first grade classroom. I don't know if you can tell. I know it looks very old, but relax, all right? Relax. If you look at this picture, I'm over here. I was rocking the bowl haircut, okay? I was rocking that thing. And the plaid jacket, check that out, you know what I'm saying? And just by the way, you could tell I was the shortest guy on that row because I wasn't supposed to be on that row. I was supposed to be on the bottom part, but I talked to this other guy if I could move there because there was a girl right above me that was Asian that I liked. Come on now, don't be hating the player, hate the game, you know? The next picture here, it's my 4th grade picture. And as you can tell, just like the other picture, it was very diverse. In fact, it was like the United Nations. And here I am. I'm still rocking the bow haircut. But one thing that was really interesting about this class was that this was my first teacher that I had that was Asian. To your left. And I quickly began to gravitate towards her because I realized she was just like me. So in that way, she became part of my circle. And then my whole world got rocked when I moved to the suburbs of Chicago. I want to show you a picture of my 8th grade basketball team. Here I am over here. And as you can tell, I am one of the 3 minorities on this team. And it was in that moment that I realized very quickly that I was different. I was different from everyone else. And all throughout junior high and all throughout high school, I tried so hard to fit in. I didn't want to be in this separate circle. I wanted to be in that circle where everyone else was. And that circle that was supposed to be cool. And I struggled with that. And then my whole world shattered when my dad almost passed away. When I was younger, my parents had 2 separate stores on the same street on the south side of Chicago. And those of you who don't know the south side of Chicago, it's south side, you know what I'm saying? South side Chicago. And it was in an area that was very disadvantaged. And I learned very quickly at a young age that you're supposed to be very suspicious and fearful of a group of people because they are darker skinned. And because of that, I began to realize that unconsciously I began to look at people differently, reinforcing the circle, that I belong in this particular circle, and then they belonged in that particular circle. I'll never forget because one time I was at my mom's store and we got a phone call from my dad. And my dad said that he was just robbed and he was injured. So my mom, in complete shock and fear, but she couldn't leave the store, she quickly told me to go to Dad's store across the street. I quickly ran across the street, and as I got there, I saw my dad. He was bleeding from his head. And he began to share that what happened was a group of teenagers, a gang, came in and with a baseball bat hit him over the head. And he went unconscious and he started bleeding. And then they stole some merchandise from the store. When we finally went to the hospital, the doctor said that if the bat hit my dad 2 inches lower, he would have probably passed away. It was in that moment I began to feel so much hatred in my heart for a particular group of people. It was very clear that they were not part of my circle. And I didn't want them to be a part of my circle because of what they have done. Not only was there anger, but there was bitterness that came every single time I saw people from that particular circle. Miroslav Volf, professor of Yale Divinity School, said this. He said, "Forgiveness flounders because I exclude the enemy from the community of humans and myself from the community of sinners." What I failed to see was my own self-righteousness, that I thought I was better than those people in that circle, that I just felt that I would not do some of the things that they did. But what I failed to see is just my own hatred, my own sinfulness, my own wretchedness, and the anger that began to brew in my heart. So when you think about this, you have to ask yourself, what causes people to hate? Was it a bad experience? Was it something that they grew up with, they learned at home? Maybe it's a generational things that have been passed down from generation after generation. But whatever the case, one of the things you realize is that oftentimes hate and even feeling the sense of difference comes out of the things that we learn at a young age. I love what Nelson Mandela said. He said this, he said, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion." In fact, this quote was quoted by the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, and he actually tweeted it with a picture, and it was amazing because it was liked by 4.6 million people and retweeted almost 2 million times. This is the picture. And you see the innocence of children, how they don't draw circles. They actually live life as if they're all part of this humanity. And I think this is something that we need to learn even from little children. If you look at this next picture, you will notice that there's a sense of human connection that we all long for, that we don't see these circles around us, but they're part of the bigger circle of humanity. And this is what transculturalism is all about. I want to share it in 3 parts so that you understand this word, which is very important. The first part comes in the form of the prefix trans. That word trans means to go over, go across, go beyond. The root word culture means the ideas, the beliefs, the attitudes, or the behaviors of a particular group of people or society. And then you will notice the suffix, which is ism, which is simply the condition or state of something. And so when you think about that word transculturalism, I want to define it in this way. It is simply a decision to go through the discomforts and the difficulties in order to develop an understanding and delight in people from different cultures. That's what it means to be transcultural. And this doesn't come automatically. In fact, it's a decision and a volition of the will. I think one of the greatest things that you're able to do is to introduce your culture to some other people. In fact, that's why I like Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote. Listen to what he says. People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. I want to take that last phrase and change it and simply say that they don't know each other because they have not eaten together. There is something amazing and phenomenal about food and how it's able to bring people together. I feel like doing a little church here and saying amen, but I'm not going to do that. As you know, it brings people together. This next picture is just brings back so many good memories. Just to let you know, I was at a conference and I was with a group of friends and some people that I knew that were from the lighter hue. They were a little bit lighter than my skin. And as we were talking about where to eat, I introduced the possibility of the playground of possibilities and to the restaurant possibilities, the possibility of eating Korean cuisine. Now, as you can tell, many of these people have never eaten food outside of their little circle. Pizza, hamburger, spaghetti, all that kind of stuff. So I introduced them to Korean barbecue. And let me just say this. Watching their faces as they bit into the Korean barbecue. Because you got to try to imagine, who doesn't know Korean barbecue? You must be from a different planet. For them to actually see their face when they're biting in, I got a glimpse of what people's faces will look like when they get to heaven. It was phenomenal. And through that whole experience, I came to the realization, if we want to be transcultural, there are 3 things you got to do. And I want you to remember these 3 things. The first thing is this, that you have to step out. You have to step out of the circle. Step out of what's comfortable, what's easy, things that are familiar. It's going to help you to understand a whole world that you haven't even discovered yet. As you step out, the second thing is this, you got to step in. Step into another circle, someone else's world. Get to understand them. The more you begin to discover people and some of their likes and dislikes and who they are, their background, you realize that every single person has a story. After you step out and step in, then you got to step up. Learning how to be an advocate for people in the different circles. Being able to stand with them during some of the pains and trials and things that they go through in life. I want to show you just quickly a picture of our first year of our church back in the University of Michigan. My wife and I, we were in our mid-20s. We had no clue what we were doing. Trust me, absolutely nothing. And we just went there and we started the church, and this was our first group of people. As you can tell, they're all part of our circle. They look very familiar. It's very safe. And was it easy? Of course not. We hurt each other. We fought. We went through things. That's why Mother Teresa said this. Mother Teresa says, I have found the paradox that if you love until it hurts, there can be no more hurt, only more love. And through that experience, what I saw was this. This is not the kind of church that I want to see. That we want to be a transcultural church. And that's why in 2011, here's another picture. We just started seeing, this is our married couples, we went bowling. You could see how things began to change as we started seeing people getting married who were from different races. And then this next picture that you'll see here is the most recent one that we took from that church in Ann Arbor. And you can just see that it was a commitment that we made to be transcultural. So once again, in conclusion, just imagine the person you're sitting next to. I'm wondering if there are people that you know and you're so familiar with and they're within your circle. What would it be like if next time you're sitting next to somebody who's completely different from you, outside of your circle? And that's when I'm wondering if we would step out and then step in and then step up. This is how our differences will make a difference in this world. And that's how we're going to transform the world. Thank you.